Greetings. Today is 8/18/2019, and it is the first day of the 6th month on the mathematical calendar from the Almighty, which begins the month of ELUL. And ELUL is meant for repentance, restoration, and anticipation for the opening of the books. And this video is about an extremely high watch. I'm a little disappointed it took me this long to find this, but here I am, and I'm kind of rushing through this because I wanted to get it out to you all for the month of ELUL, and so you can prepare via repentance and restoration and preparation. Okay? So, the first thing I want to lay the foundation is concerning the mathematical calendar that the Almighty gave to Enoch, and that was restored to us via the Dead Sea Scrolls back in 47. And like I said in the past, I believe the knowledge of the Dead Sea Scrolls back in 47 was the conception of the end time generation for 48. Okay? Because we needed this knowledge. Otherwise, we couldn't put the pieces of the puzzle together. Period. Alright? And the Messiah gave me two strong confirmations that this mathematical calendar is correct. Okay? Because for the longest time, I was on the wrong calendar. And it's disappointing that I didn't get to it sooner. I was actually being lazy, just hoping the other one was right. But when I finally got onto it, a short while afterwards, the Messiah gave me an amazing confirmation. And if you see my past videos, I showed it. But the one day I walked outside, and directly above my house was this rainbow in the middle of the sky, and it wasn't raining. And I thought that was pretty amazing, but it was being a little dense, and it didn't really sink in as to what was actually going on until almost a week went by. So then the one day I was contemplating, and I said, whoa, wait a second. When did the Almighty put the rainbow in the sky for Noah? And I looked it up, and the exact day that the Almighty put the rainbow in the sky for Noah was the exact mathematical calendar day that it was above my house. And I truly believe that was the Messiah telling me that the mathematical calendar is correct, that we got via the Dead Sea Scrolls. But it was his calendar from the beginning. He gave way back to Enoch, but we didn't get it until the Dead Sea Scrolls. And then a recent confirmation, because one of the main anchor points that I believe 2019 must be the start of the final 14 years, is the fact that I believe 33 AD is when the Messiah resurrected and ascended. And I believe that the Great Pyramid of Giza is the altar of Isaiah 19:19 that is a witness. And the one date, there's 3 dates in the Christ triangle in the Great Pyramid of Giza, but the one date is 4/3/33. And some people believe that this is the crucifixion, but that's just people saying that. The dates in the geometry of the Great Pyramid they're not labeled. These are calculations that people calculated. They're not actually labeled. But anyway, I don't believe it's for the crucifixion. I believe it's for the resurrection, because the crucifixion isn't what made the Messiah unique. I mean, there was probably millions of people crucified, or at least hundreds of thousands. What made the Messiah unique was that he resurrected. Okay. But anyway, so the other day I was thinking, let me check this date. And I went back, plugged in 33. Here's the equinox. So right here would be day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. So this day would be the day of the Passover lamb preparation. Alright. Oops. So here we have the Passover lamb preparation. Then at that evening, at twilight, the Messiah and the disciples ate the Passover meal. Then Gethsemane, then he allows himself to be taken, go into trial, blah, blah, blah. And then in the afternoon, right here, is when he's crucified during the preparation for the high Sabbath, which I think it's John 19, tells us that it's a high Sabbath. That's what they wanted to get him crucified before the high Sabbath. And it was the high Sabbath of unleavened bread. And the preparation day here was they were removing the leaven. So the preparation here was the Passover lamb. The preparation here, removing the leaven. So he died when they were removing the leaven, because the Almighty was removing the Lamb of God who taketh away the sin of the world. He was removing the sin of the world. Okay. So then this would be night 1, day 1, night 2, day 2, night 3, day 3, 4/3/33 AD. Then he would have resurrected after twilight on 4/3/33. See, resurrection after twilight. Okay? I can't make that up. It's just doing the calculations of the mathematical calendar and matching it up with the Christ Triangle and the Great Pyramid. But it fits perfect. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I believe when the Messiah tells us in Matthew 24:44 that we're not going to be able to perceive the start of his coming, it's because 99% of humanity is on the wrong calendar. Probably at least 95% of Christianity is on the wrong calendar. I mean, I considered myself a pretty dedicated disciple, and I was on the wrong calendar up until a couple months ago. So, there you have it. And even if you're on the right calendar, who doesn't mean you're going to see the day, the time. So I'm bringing all that up to lay the foundation that you have to have the right calendar. Mathematical calendar given to Enoch from the Almighty, revealed to us in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, so what we're looking for is the start of his coming, which is the open door in heaven, the first rapture. Alright? And I believe Psalm 96 points to that, and we'll come back to that. The first rapture is the one that is sudden. Okay? The open door in heaven. Everything's business as usual one day, and then boom, the Messiah rips open a little wormhole, the angels come, remove the wise virgins, sudden destruction. The first rapture is the one that is sudden. The second rapture is not sudden at all. It's a 7-year process. It gets worse, worse, and worse. And everybody knows who's coming because of the testifying of the fifth seal martyrs, for one. But everybody knows who's coming because many people will understand that the first rapture is evidence seen, okay? And then every eye will see when New Jerusalem is birthed into our dimension, when he returns, and then everybody's gathered up into the clouds, his people. That is not sudden. The first rapture is sudden. The second rapture is not sudden. So when he's talking about sudden, quick, that is all talking about the start of his coming. All right, when he says, "I come," and he goes forth conquering yet to conquer, and he's bringing about justice, and he's putting his enemies under his feet. That's what the process is. Okay, and unfortunately, I didn't realize this till the other day, because I had my mind focused that the birth was in reference to the 144,000, which it is, because Revelation 12 is a timeline of the 144,000, and it says that they're birthed from among believers and then caught up with believers because they are believers. And then when they're up in New Jerusalem at the throne, that's when they get sealed, trained, commissioned for their 1260-day special mission, and then set back down in Revelation 8:5. So because I was kind of focused on that, I kind of missed the real birth that the Messiah is talking about, which is the birth of New Jerusalem into our dimension. Because the Revelation 6:14 wormhole is a womb opening. It's space opening a womb, and New Jerusalem is birthed into our dimension. And that's when every eye sees him, because New Jerusalem's almost the size of the moon. And then you see in the verses right after that the people are scared and hiding because they see his face. All right? Well, if the Almighty's always in his city, in his temple, at his throne, how are they going to see him unless he's here? And that's exactly what's occurring. New Jerusalem birthed into our dimension, and they are here in near space. And that's the main birth that the Messiah is talking about. So in Mark 13:33, the Messiah tells us that we need to be on alert. And when you look into the Greek, it's saying that we need to be on alert for the time of when it all comes to a head. Okay? And the main reason why I believe 2019 has to be the year that it begins is because there's so many multiple anchor points. Like if it was just one or two, I would only be saying that it's a possibility, you know. But there's so many anchor points that I just don't. With the numbers in Scripture, I just don't see any other way. Because the 70th week began this year, and it was the 70th year of the end time generation. Okay, that's not a coincidence. 70th week began in the 70th year. And one of the things I didn't realize earlier on was that the beginning of sorrows, so sorrow could not begin until the 71st year. Because in Psalm 90 it says that our years are 70, but if by strength 80, well, that implies that 71 to 80 is the sorrow and labor. Not the 70th. Okay. And then the main anchor point, the most unique celestial event in the history of humanity, has never before occurred. Jupiter remained in the belly for 9 months. And not only that, but it was prophesied 2,000 years in advance. This is the most unique thing in the history of humanity. It was more unique than the Messiah, the celestial signs for the Messiah's birth. That's how unique this was. And to me, that's the Almighty, the Messiah, saying, this is it. All right? And it fits perfectly for a 9-year pregnancy with the birth of the 144,000 and New Jerusalem in 2026. Okay. And the fact that the fulfillment of trumpets is the war in heaven. So, meaning that the start of the coming should occur before trumpets this year. And then, of course, we have, like we spoke about a little bit earlier, 33 AD plus 2,000 years, completion of desolations. Because when you look at Daniel 9:24, when it talks about making an end of transgression, or excuse me, here we are. Okay, right here in Daniel 9, when he says, finish transgression, make an end of sin, make atonement for iniquity, bring an everlasting righteousness, seal up the vision, anoint the most holy. Number one, this is for, the 70 weeks are for your people. Okay? Which is the anointed. And when he says seal up the vision, this phrase, Gabriel says the same phrase to Daniel twice in Daniel 12. And Daniel 12 was before Daniel 9, historically speaking. So, the precedent, Gabriel set the precedent of what seal up the vision means. And what seal up the vision means, it means it's for the end time. I go around and around and around and around with people on blogs and other channels and stuff like that about this, and people just cannot receive it. And to me, it's so Gabriel says, seal up the vision for the end time. So that's what it means. It's for the end time. But because the translators translated Mashiach as Messiah, they want to take the English and make it as though this means it's the Messiah, for the time of the Messiah. And it has nothing to do with the time of the Messiah. Okay? Because Daniel was praying about when are the end of the desolations. And that's what Gabriel's answering. He's not answering when the end of the captivity is. He's answering when the end of the desolations are. And it's not till the end. Okay? And the 70 weeks are for your people. And then when you see right here where the people are cut off, which is a Hebrew phrase for the fruit being removed from the earth, a harvest. So when it says the anointed will be cut off, and then the prince comes, which is the 70 weeks are for your people, they're removed, and for your holy city. That's when the beginning of the end of the desolation starts, the transition. But anyway, I'm flopping on my gums because it says right here, make an end of sin. Alright? Well, when the Messiah came, he was the Lamb of the Almighty who taketh away the sin of the world. Okay? Us. Make an end of sin. The original sin was Apollyon, the Antichrist. And the Almighty puts all the blame on him. He's the one that brought about evil, not us. So the Messiah dealt with the sin of the world with his blood, but to make an end of sin, because Apollyon came from heaven, not the world. So the end of sin is when they get tossed into the burning fire, not 2,000 years ago. Just like to finish the transgression. Well, the fallen angels are the transgression. The fallen angels are the one that brought about iniquity. And everlasting righteousness isn't brought in until the millennial reign. And the holy place isn't anointed until the Messiah comes down and cleanses it. Properly cleanses it after the 2,300 days of being polluted by the fallen angels that are released. So, the completions and desolations, 2,000 exactly years to the day. Messiah deals with the sin of the world in 33 AD, and then in 2033, he makes an end of sin. 2,000 years to the day, probably. Okay? So now the high watch, some of the information observed. Boaz was winnowing barley after the barley and wheat harvest, meaning he was processing the barley in the summer. The darling in the Song of Solomon 2, she arises in the summer. The Messiah has a winnowing fork in his hand to winnow his enemies. Well, when does he start winnowing his enemies? In the summer, at the start of his coming. I come. And he goes forth conquering and to conquer. And this is one of the things that I missed. But the Messiah speaks of summer being near for when the doors open. And he does doors plural. I think in Luke it's singular, but in Mark and Matthew it's plural. And the fact that it's plural, I believe, fits perfectly with the fact that the first rapture of the wise virgins will be in summer, and the rapture of those that remain and the dead will be in summer. The first figs are ripe in summer. It seems like the Almighty is doing everything in sequence, and the Messiah fulfilled the spring feasts, and I believe that he's going to fulfill the fall feast. But it appears as though the summer is for believers. Pentecost, new wine, new oil, new wood. Okay. Then we see the husband returns on a full moon, And then what we have to understand is that there's 3 coming events. The start of his coming, or the process of his coming, which is the seals. Then he returns to the top of the clouds near space at the end of the 6th seal. And then he comes down to tread the winepress at the end of the 71st week for the War of the Great Day. So Elul, it's at the end of summer. From my understanding, the symbols that make up Elul, it means my beloved is mine and I am his, which points us back to the Song of Solomon too. The exact word of Elul is from another language, and what it means in another language is harvest. It literally means harvest. And it's a time of return, repentance, preparation for the judgment of the opening of the books. And the first judgment is in the house of the Almighty, which is the 70th week of trial. And the second judgment is for the wicked, which is the 71st week of wrath. Okay? And then we see the new wood is the supply for the temple. And I'm saying this is because I believe that new wood is the extremely high watch. Because the oil and the wine remain during the seals, because we see the 3rd seal saying don't hurt the oil and the wine, which implies that they're there. Okay? And then a summer to summer would be exactly a week. And the start of Elul was a full barley moon. The end of Elul, the new Wood Feast, is the harvest full moon. It's the name of the full moon for that time of the year. It's called the harvest full moon. Like I said before, the vast majority won't be able to perceive this because they're not even on the right calendar, let alone the insight. So everything seems to be pointing to the coming. All right. Now, when we go to here, all right. So the revelation. Okay. Now, interestingly, this word right here, this word is actually not for everybody. This word is considered like basically the wise virgins. Okay? In the Greek. Now, so the Messiah gives the testimony, or excuse me, gives the revelation to John. The Messiah got the revelation from the Almighty. The Messiah sends the angel to give it to John. But John sees a vision of the Messiah. And the vision of the Messiah down here were burnished bronze, glowing of a furnace, sound of many waters, flames of fire. This is the same description as Daniel 7. Or wait a second. Was that Daniel 7? Yeah, Daniel 7. Here it is. Okay, so white snow, ablaze flames, burning fire. Okay, and then down here we see. Oh, wait a second. Okay. I thought bronze was in here somewhere. Okay, but anyway. So, John sees him, and it matches this right here. Okay, and then what's the following? What happens right here? The court sits. The books were opened, but the thousands and thousands were already here, and the myriads and myriads are already here. The myriads are standing, but now they sit. Okay, and then he's given his kingdom. Okay. Oh. And then we see here white wool, flames of fire, glowing furnace. We have that same description in Revelation 1. And then in Revelation 4, we see the court sit, which is the elders. All right. My point is that is to come. Behold, he is coming. Is to come on the Sabbath day. Is when he gets this vision. Okay. So he's emphasizing is coming, because when you look at the interlinear, it says is coming, not is to come. So he says, he who is coming, behold, he is coming. All right. And then down here, he gets the vision. And it's on the Sabbath day. And he sees the Messiah. And it's the same thing as Daniel 9. And then in Daniel 9, at this same time, the myriads and myriads are standing, and then they sit for court. And then the books are opened, and he's given dominion. And then the same thing happens in Revelation. They're confirming each other. All right? Perfectly. So my point is that it's talking about his coming. All right? Now, when we go to Psalm 96, it starts off as, "O sing unto the Almighty a new song," which I believe is a huge clue. Because right here in Revelation 5, when he begins his coming, they sing a new song. The elders, the beast, and the angels. The elders being the Church of Philadelphia, the wise virgins, the first rapture. They sing a new song. All right? And here, bring an offering, come into his courts. All right? And what happens? The courts sit, as we see in Revelation 4 and also Daniel 7, when they're talking about the same exact event. Okay? The courts sit. And here in Psalm 96 it's saying, bring an offering, come into his courts. So what is this offering? Well, when you look at Psalm 96:10, right here, say among the heathen that the Almighty reigneth. Right. Well, this translation says, proclaim among the nations that the Almighty reigns from the wood. Okay. Say among the nations that the Almighty reigns from the wood. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. Let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea roar and the fullness thereof. Let the field be joyful, and all that is therein. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice and sing a new song. And they sung a new song. Before the Almighty, for he cometh. He cometh to judge. He shall judge with righteousness and with truth. So I believe Psalm 96 is a gigantic clue about his coming. That he's coming. The Almighty reigneth from the new wood, from the wood. All the trees of the wood will rejoice, sing a new song, because he cometh. Bring an offering into his courts. And the interesting thing about new wood is that all of Israel brought it in. And it was for the Levites to perform their duties of the sacrifices for the whole year, to keep the eternal flame burning in the temple. And what are the wise virgins doing in New Jerusalem? They're acting as the Levites, but they come from all of Israel, not just Levi. The wise virgins are from every nation, every tribe, every tongue. They're not just Levi. And I believe that's the offering that comes into the courts. The new wood of those who are going to be acting as the Levites in New Jerusalem, conducting a work, a duty, just like the Levites. So, comes at new wood, comes during the summer, comes at a full moon, comes during relative peace, comes during a Sabbath, comes right before the time for opening the books. And this is what I'm so disappointed that it took me so long to figure out. I should have seen this years ago. He comes right before the books are open. Why? Because the wise virgins, the Church of Philadelphia, they are the ones sitting at the court as witnesses with the Messiah to open the books. And when are the books open? Trumpets. But he's not fulfilling the trumpets when the books are open. He's fulfilling the trumpets at the war in heaven. Well, the new wood on 9/15/2019 has the first fruits of all of Israel being brought into the temple. And the Sabbath 9/14/2000 as the actual gathering fulfill these checklists. Alright? The full moon of the month of Elul will occur during the final watch in Jerusalem prior to the sunrise on the weekly Sabbath at approximately 6 a.m. on 9/14/2019. Matthew 28 tells us after the high Sabbath, and John 19 is the one that confirms that this is a high Sabbath, not just a regular Sabbath. Unleavened bread just before the dawn of the weekly Sabbath. Okay? So the exact time of the full harvest moon of Elul matches the exact time that the angel rolled away the stone. New wood is when all of Israel brought in wood to supply the Levites with gear to do their temple duties for the whole year. And as we've seen in, I think it's Exodus, that when the Levites were doing their duty in the temple, that's what kept away the plague from all of Israel. And the plague is death. It's a name for death. And then we see in the third seal, not to hurt the oil and the wine. And I believe it's because the wise virgins are acting as the Levites in New Jerusalem, and the duty that they're doing is keeping them protected during the trial, or at least assisting. Now, going back over to Daniel 9 timeline, it's for the time of the end, not for Christ. All right, 70 weeks are for the anointed, then they are cut off, harvested from the earth. Then the prince comes for the 71st week. The anointed ruler, end time Elijah, comes after the 69th week, which is POTUS Trump. Now, I don't see how people can't see this. I mean, there's even Christians going the exact opposite, calling him the Antichrist and all this baloney. But what was Elijah known for? All right, he stood up to the prophets, the false prophets of Baal. That's what he did. Now, love or hate President Trump, what does he do? He stands up to all the people that are coming against him. And who was on the scene at the end of the 69th week that the whole world talks about? Even his name means exactly this. Because the Messiah said that John the Baptist came in the spirit of Elijah. All right. Well, Daniel 9 tells us that the anointed ruler comes at the end of the 69th week. The anointed ruler. Well, Donald means world ruler. Okay? And then his middle name is John. John the Baptist. Spirit of Elijah. So even his name is confirming that he's the anointed ruler that is being led by the Messiah. So, here we have 1536 is when the 70-week count starts. because it says to restore the walls, and when they are called again, meaning in this instance it means the Jews called again to Jerusalem. Now the Hebrew implies that it's not just when it's decreed, but when the decree is acted upon, meaning when construction begins. And it appears as though both, because the decree was made in 1535 by Suleiman. He said that's when he declared he was going to restore the walls, 1535. But history claims that the construction did not start until 1536. And it was in 1536 when he started saying, he put out the call for the Jews to come back to Jerusalem because he's restoring it. My point being is that it fulfills both of these. The start of the construction and the calling again in 1536. So 1536 plus 62 equals 1970. And in 1970 was when the construction began for the old city to be restored, and that's when the broad wall of Nehemiah was found. And when you look in the Hebrew of Daniel 9, the moat, it actually is not a moat, it's the broad wall. So after the 62, the broad wall, and the old city restored. Then we have the 7. Then it says after the 69, the anointed ruler. It's really hard to sift through Daniel because the English is so out of whack. But if you paid attention to my videos in the past, I believe the Messiah allows that because he commands us to dissect his word. And he's using this as a tool to separate the wise and foolish virgins. But this is what he's saying. 70 weeks are determined for the anointed and the holy city to finish transgression, fallen angels, to make an end to sin, fallen angels, to make reconciliation for iniquity, fallen angels, to bring in everlasting righteousness, millennial kingdom, seal up the vision for the end time, meaning this is for the end time, and to anoint the most holy when the Messiah comes down to cleanse the earth of the fallen angels. And he says, know, therefore, and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem. Okay. Now, okay, 24, 25. Here we go. Oh man, this thing is going slow on me. I don't know why there shouldn't be that many people in. Okay, we got Daniel. I've done a video on this, but you know me, when I start flapping my gums about the Messiah, I just keep going. So here we are. Know, therefore, understand that from the going forth the command to restore Here it is. See? This isn't restore. Therefore know and understand that from the going forth of the command to call back, to return, to turn back, and build, rebuild. So that's what it was. Okay. The Hebrew here is not. It's calling back. So this is the two right here. The calling back and to rebuild. Until this just means anointed and prince is a ruler. There shall be 7 and 62. So when the anointed ruler comes, it'll be after the 7 and 62, which is 69. After the 69 weeks is the anointed ruler. Okay? All right. Okay, and then here, after the 62 weeks, is when the old city's restored, and this here moat, it's the broad wall. It's not a moat. It's talking about the broad wall, and that's when the broad wall was found. Why it's so early in the morning. All right. Now, this here is not the proper translation. When you look at the old Greek, it's actually then after the 77s, meaning after the 70 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off. So the anointed will be cut off, meaning the anointed will be removed from the earth, harvested from the earth, and this isn't even in the ancient Hebrew. I don't know why they added that. 26. But anyway, what it's saying here is that the anointed are removed, rescued, but not the city. And then it's saying that the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. All right? So the 70 weeks end here when the anointed are cut off, and then that transitions into the holy city. So the 70 weeks are for your people, then they're cut off, and then it's the end for your people, and then it's the beginning for the final week of the city until the desolations are completed. All right? So that's what's going on there. But my point is that the anointed ruler comes after the 69, right here, which is the end time Elijah. And it's POTUS Trump, because the Messiah is using him as the anointed ruler of end time Ephraim as his arrows to manifest in the earth. He's using them, us, America, to put his enemies under his feet. I mean, he's using more of us, but we're the main object, the main tool. And then after the 70, the anointed cut off, removed from the earth, seventh seal, that transitions, end for the people, beginning for the completion of the desolations for the city. And then the 71st week is the final for the wrath. Okay? So, I personally believe that the right here, 9:15 for new wood, 29th of Elul, and even the 29th of Elul is known as a day of sudden destruction. Right? I believe this is a strong possibility that the wise virgins, the Church of Philadelphia, will be in New Jerusalem on this day, fulfilling the offering being brought in on Psalm 96, and the coming beginning, the new song being sung. Meaning that right here would be the open door. I guess I should probably put that there. And like we went over, I believe it fulfills all the check marks because it'll be, right at the time of new wood, during the summer, at a full moon, during peace, on a Sabbath, right before the opening of the books. So, if this is the open door, it's on a Sabbath, on a full moon. The full moon of that month is called the harvest moon. It's in the month of Elul, which is the harvest month, and the month of Elul is called I am. What is it called? I am. My beloved is mine, and I am his, hearkening us back to Song of Solomon 2, which is talking about the time for the bride to arise in summer. And then we see the next day is new wood, when the offering's brought in to the courts. The new song is sung, Revelation 5. So Revelation 4, Revelation 5, Revelation 6. I come, going forth conquering and to conquer. The books are opened. Right there. I don't know. It sure seems like it fits all the pieces. So that's what I found. Here, I clean this up. So hopefully this is 9:14. Started the final 14 years. Then 8:17 for the next rapture. It's actually almost directly in the middle of new wine and new oil. 30 days. And the trumpets begin. Okay. 42 months. From here to here is the time of when the beasts surround Jerusalem and conquer it. They conquer it by this, which is the start of the 42 months. Okay. So, time will tell, but I encourage you all to join me in repentance. Probably do some fasting and some major praying and wherever the Messiah leads me for these final, hopefully, these final few days. And I would say these are some possibilities of high watches, but this is the one right here. These two are the main ones that I personally believe this fulfills all the checklists. And we'll see what happens. But I encourage you all to join me in repenting and returning and restoration, getting ready in these final moments, and then hopefully the evidence is seen on this day or sooner. Sooner the better, in my opinion. But yep, so that's all I got. I ask that the will of the Most High Almighty be done in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahushua. And hopefully I see you all at the throne, and we could toss our crowns at the Messiah's feet and sing a new song. Till then, take care.